Hi, my name is Leanna. I'm a Master of Social Work student at the University of Utah, and I am presenting on parenting insights and tips. These are evidence-based principles from the book Parenting from the Inside Out. This book speaks more to the parent doing their own self-reflection so that they can understand how their own experiences play into the relationship that they are developing with the child. The first chapter talks about how we remember, and that experience shapes our development, who we are today, and how we have become this way. It speaks a lot about unresolved and leftover issues. So unresolved issues are ones that have been probably pretty stressful for us and involved a lot of emotions. When our brain has to process experiences with a lot of emotions, sometimes they're not processed completely and they aren't stored in the proper way, which means that when we remember these issues, it usually comes in the form of flashbacks or accompanied by really intense emotions, and we might not understand why. So an example of this is Daniel, the author of the book, talks about his own experience as a medical student. And when he was working in the pediatrics unit, he witnessed a lot of kids in pain and crying, and he felt like he was the source of their pain and their crying. Now, he didn't really process that until he had his own son. And whenever his son cried, he just was gripped by this panic, this fear, this helplessness, this really desire to avoid his son and his crying. And he kept thinking, like, I don't know why this is happening to me. I don't think anything happened in my childhood that made me feel like I was crying all the time and I wasn't cared for. I don't know why this is coming up. And then one day he was with his son. His son was crying, just as an infant does. And he got an intense flashback to when he was in that pediatric rotation and just remembering having to hold kids down while they received their shots and how helpless he felt in that, and that he really felt like he was causing that pain to them. And he had to do his own work to separate that experience from any future experience of a child crying, and especially in being able to develop a relationship with his son, he had to do that work to separate the situations that he had experienced with the ones that he was currently experiencing and would experience in the future. So that's an example of an unresolved issue. It's one that doesn't immediately come to mind, and we might need to do more self-reflection or more work in order to understand why we are reacting in such intense emotional ways when our children present certain issues or situations to us. Leftover issues are ones that might come to mind more readily, but they're not really ones that we've resolved. So an example of this is from Mary, who's the other author of the book, and she talks about shoe shopping with her kids. And what could have been a just, exciting experience for the kids and, fine experience for the mother, it always ended up being really stressful and just kind of a negative experience for the whole family. There were concerns over, is it the right shoe? Is it going to fit? Is the price right? Is it going to last a long time? Is this the right store to get it in? And all the different questions and emotions and just a lot of frustration and stress around it. And after one of these experiences with her children, they were in the car going back home, and one of her sons turned to her and said, "Didn't you ever enjoy shopping for shoes as a kid?" And immediately she just said no. And it brought back to her memory the times that she went shopping with her mother and how stressful that was. She was a child in a pretty big family, and so shoe shopping was always something that was stressful, done during a big sale when there were lots of other people, and just a lot of stress for her. And so that kind of carried over into a stressful situation for her children, even though the situation wasn't exactly the same as when she was growing up. And so therefore didn't have to be the same experience for her kids. And so after recognizing that, she was able to work through it. So those are examples of unresolved and leftover issues. Talking more a little bit about that, we think about traumatic experiences sometimes as something huge, and that only certain people with really bad experiences have traumatic memories. But trauma is just experiences that have been highly stressful that maybe have not allowed our brain to store the experience in the proper way. So I liked this quote from the book. During the trauma and adaptation to survive can include the focusing of attention away from the horrifying aspects of an experience. And so when that experience is triggered, it brings up these really distressing emotions. So thinking about parenting and creating experiences for our children, this quote says, even with love and the best of intentions, we may be filled with old defenses that can make our children's experiences intolerable to us. And it speaks to the triggers that we can receive from our own experiences in the past. So it's really important to be aware of our emotions and how they're playing into the relationships and the experiences that we have with our children. And that can be difficult to do the self-reflection, have self-recognition, to know that maybe something's off. So we can find resolution and move forward. The unresolved and leftover issues can create defenses. They can create inflexibility in our mindsets and views and perspectives of our children or of certain experiences, and can create a feeling of apathy or of ambivalence towards our children. Parents don't usually want these things, and we can work through resolving issues. It takes self-reflection, it takes mindfulness, and a lot of times it requires attention and some work in order to receive the healing. But it's possible. So reach out to people who you feel safe with and who you know care about you and who you care about, and they can help you recognize things that you may not recognize in yourself. And then also reach out to a therapist if you're finding that there are certain issues that you're not understanding and experiences that you're having with your children that you don't want to. Good luck with parenting.